So, like we get every season, it was time for a swap this week. Um, I could be alone in this, but I've always kind of wished that whenever they had three tribes in a season, they would just sort of play it out as three tribes until they actually got to the merge. I know in Philippines people were like, well, they had to put Denise and Malcolm on different tribes just because they were the only two left, and I get that, but I'd like to see it sort of play out as three tribes all the way to the final 12 if possible, and only really put one person on another tribe if it comes down to like a Stephanie type situation from Palau where they're the only person on their tribe left. But with that out of the way, they went down from three tribes to two again, or back to three, or just to three if you want to be specific, and have the whole Julia being on Bronze tribe by herself counting. But I actually have to admit it took me a little bit to sort of get down who was on which tribe, and it wasn't really until after the challenge that I think I did, because I know when they were doing immunity, I got mixed up a couple times on which tribe Joe was supposed to be on, but that's just a little thing. I went back and I checked, and it was all worked out from there. So the episode started off with Neil finding the idol pretty much, and I'm glad that he did. I know people seem to think he's kind of boring or whatever, but really compared to say Peter finding the idol, or even Debbie, who's kind of been getting a little weird lately, I think it was probably the best outcome I could think of, all things considered. I mean, the other choice would have been just to have it not get found and then have Sydney and Jason go looking for it, which wouldn't really have worked out well. And for all I know, they probably did. On the blue tribe, there is Debbie, Neil, Sydney, Jason, Michelle, and Nick. On the yellow tribe, there's Aubrey, Joe, Peter, Anna, Ty, and Scott. As I mentioned right off the start, Julia was pretty much exiled by herself. And this is going to sound really bad to say because I still think they're huge douches for the way they treated Alicia and everything, but Scott and Jason seem to be a lot more tolerable when they're away from each other. Like, I feel like they're just bad influences on each other whenever they're together. Though it does kind of pain me a little bit to see them both in really good positions, because Jason and Sydney on, I believe it's Chan Lo now, are pretty much in the swing position between Debbie and Neil and Michelle and Nick. And Scott's in an alliance with Ty, and I would assume Julia is going to be involved in that too after. And he knows that not only Ty has an idol, but that Jason has an idol. And assuming the merge is going to be at 11, you would think that he would be brought into Sydney and Jason's alliance with whoever they decide to go with. Now, I would have a theory that if there was any sort of communication, that it could be seen as likely that Sydney and Jason would go with Michelle and Nick. You know, if Scott was able to relate that he was in with Ty, because then it could be some sort of Brawn and Beauty teaming up against Brains thing. I'd like to think that's not what's going to happen, but considering there's 5 Brains left, and there's 5 Brains left, 3 Brawn rather, and 4 Beauty, it would kind of make sense. I know I'm talking about all this stuff that's going on in the episode as if I'm not or in theories and stuff as if I'm not actually reviewing it, but I mean, I think that there's so much to talk about. Just shows that I think it was like actually a good episode. Afterwards, the whole thing on whether they were going to play the idol on Anna or whether they were going to just let her go, I wasn't sure on. I think it was smart of Ty not to, though, because pretty much he's showing Scott that he trusts him, and with Julia coming over, he not only moves up the ranking in the girls, but is pretty much right back where he started anyway. So we'll have to see how it goes. I know before this episode, a lot of people thought Anna was really high on their rankings of people to win, but that was never really something I saw or got. So I'm not sure what they were thinking on with it. It's the same way I wasn't sure why people thought Liz was in a top contender spot or anything like that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I really have to say about this episode. I don't think they're going to merge right after. I know this is shorter than what I normally do, but I don't really think anyone cares like that. Yeah, I'm going to take a guess and say that next episode is going to be the last one before the merge, since this took place before Cambodia. But yeah, I guess we'll just see.